All right. Welcome back to Mixtape Stories. Today we've got Bridgette and Bobby from Honey Bunny.
All right.
How's it going?
Good, great. Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. I'm really excited. Every week we take every week we have a guest make a playlist. I suggested, as you guys are significant others in a band, have a playlist of bands with significant others in it. We've got 5 songs, and it's a fun list. I'm really excited. Before we started recording, I was talking about how this is, people kind of gravitate. They hear this like topic, and they're like, oh, like Fleetwood Mac, no doubt,
Right?
Mhm.
And those two aren't on here, and it's great, and I'm glad. And I love those bands, but we're gonna talk about bands like I've been wanting to talk about in the podcast for a while. So
Sorry, I didn't interrupt.
No, go ahead.
We actually had those like in the circuit of stuff we were going to suggest, and then we were like, no, exactly for that reason. We were like, we need to pick some other stuff, little less well known, because people be doing it.
yeah. And this is a type of, hopefully we have more episodes. This is something that we can always add on later with other guests if they want to do the same topic. So that's something that could come up later. But yeah, y'all hit on some really cool songs, some really cool bands. So when it came to kind of coming up with these songs and these bands, what kind of went into what you were thinking in terms of what you wanted to include?
I don't know. I love making lists of music, making playlists.
He really does.
I don't know. It's just very satisfying. I like it. So I think we initially sat down and just went through all of the Spotify and what bands have couples in them, and then it was pretty much. I feel like she kind of did the whittling. Yeah, so
not this band, but this band.
What are we inspired to talk about? We've talked about No Doubt so much. So it's
it's kind of why we didn't want to choose it.
Yeah,
because it's a little obvious. Plus, there's a couple in the band, but I feel like a lot of the music was written about how they split up. So I was like, I want to choose people that are like successfully like still doing it together as a couple, in a relationship. So
same with like Fleetwood Mac Rumors. That's the whole lore of it.
That's the whole thing. Yeah, is that it was like, what's the word? Everyone was breaking up. It was very dramatic.
Everyone was sleeping with everybody.
Yeah. It's not like and they've been together and they're still doing it, like I want a success story or two.
And it's fun too, because I think with some of these bands, some of them, they broke up while they were still in the band, but they remained friends. We're gonna talk about Blondie later, and Debbie Harry and Chris Stein were together during the band. They broke up, and like she's like I think the godmother of one of his kids. Like they're just still really close. It's really cool. I'm really excited about this. Just kind of jumping into it. The first song y'all picked was Wordy Rappinghood by Tom Tom Club. Tom Tom Club, of course, is Chris France and Tina Weymouth. It was a side project, I guess you could call it, while Talking Heads were in hiatus, while David Byrne was doing his own thing.
Yes.
And I love Tom Tom Club. I always associate them with Genius of Love.
Of course.
Because Mariah Carey sample, and I love that song. I wasn't as familiar with Wordy Rappinghood, and this was actually the first song they ever recorded together.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
So when David Byrne did his own thing, they were kind of figuring out what they wanted to do, and I think it's Island Records, this guy from Island Records, Chris Blackwell, invited him to the Bahamas and said, hey, I've got a studio down here. Why don't we record something? If I like this song, we'll record a whole album. They went down, didn't have a plan. They're just like, we'll just kind of mess around, we'll jam out, see what happens. And they recorded the instrumentals, and Chris kind of told Tina, like, hey, you should probably do the vocals. She's like, I'm not a singer. I don't want to sing, like, lead. He's like, oh, well, there's this new thing called rap. This is a year after Rapture by Blondie came out. So nice. I feel like everyone's kind of experimenting with rapping. And that kind of led to, like, she talked about how she never considered herself a wordsmith. So she's like, why don't a song about words?
Spitting. Yeah. Like all this, like, rhythmic. What's a Wordsworth? It's so cool. We jam this song like on the regular. It's like on every playlist.
It's dope. It's funny because it definitely kind of, it was 1981 is when it was released. And it kind of transitions, like, they come from the CBGB, like New York scene. And they kind of, Tom Tom Club is a lot more dancey, a lot more like pop oriented. So it's a nice transition from that era of the New York City to like what they were doing with new wave. What was it that about this song? I know you said that you guys kind of jam it a lot. What was it about this song specifically that you wanted to put it on the list?
I mean, we're fans of the Tom Tom Club, and like you said, like Talking Heads, and like the lore that like that this couple and this band lives inside of the Talking Heads, you know, or and I don't know. I think we just, like we were talking about earlier, we just wanted to pick something really kind of out there and that people don't really think about as much. And like this song is just so like unique and kind of bizarre, and we get a lot of inspiration from the style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I feel like we probably found it from just being huge Talking Heads fans and needing more, as much content as we can get, everything in the Talking Heads universe. So yeah, and so eventually we ended up doing Tom Tom Club, and Sam always knew Genius of Love, knew the sample and all that, but I think at one point you were playing this song in your car or something, and I was just like, what is this? This is amazing. Is this? You know, it's so silly. And we love silliness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it rocks, the
Tom Tom Club's Genius of Love and Stop Making Sense is like very silly. And, you know, they're just having fun. They're having a good time. Yeah.
He's like, okay, now we're turning into the Tom Tom Club. Like,
looks frozen to me.
Amazing.
It's dope. I love that. It's funny because, I mean, this song wasn't as big in the US as it was in the UK. That's also kind of a trend with some of these songs on this list. Like,
I didn't even realize that. That's cool.
And then, like, you're talking about like the gibberish, and like those were things that Tina Weymouth's sisters record backing vocals on this song, and they were recording, and they were out in the Bahamas. Tom Tom Club itself is named after a dance hall in the Bahamas.
Okay, I didn't know.
So like the Bahamas is such an important like figure in their story, and they were like walking down the beach, and they like one of her sisters was like, they started like holding hands like a chain, and they started singing this song that they sang. I don't know if it was while they were in France. I know that her mom is French, but it was like a French song that apparently came from kids from I don't know if it was like Jamaica or Bahamas that they would like kind of chant, and that's what led to like a lot of the like. It sounds like a nursery rhyme.
It does. Yeah. I was gonna say that there's something so catchy about it, and it sounds like something you would just do like a hand clap thing with your girlfriends. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
I really love that. It's funny because, I mean, Rapture is kind of looked as like kind of, I don't want to, it's not a joke because it's still a good song, but it's
also hilarious.
Yeah. And it's very campy. I guess that's the thing. That's what it was going for. And we're going to talk about Blondie a lot more later, but it's interesting to see, because I feel like if someone were to release a song like this now, it'd feel like almost not exploitative, but it feels very cutting, like very vanilla. Whereas back then it was fun to kind of see like the experimentation of it. It wasn't like appropriating so much as it was like kind of having fun with it. And I feel like having fun is like what Tom Tom Club is all about.
Yeah.
Everything about this band feels like a vacation from David Byrne, because I know he's very controlling, and it just felt. I love that it you can hear like how much they love each other in the music, and it just feels like this is like their honeymoon, even though like their musical honeymoon.
Yeah, hilarious how you're kind of making that connection, because it's like, oh, it's like about the Bahamas, and it's very like tropical, and it's a vacation from like that's awesome to think about.
They're still together. They've been married since 1977, and I've seen. I don't know if you guys have seen interviews of them like lately. They still are very like in love with each other.
Yeah,
I think we have. Yeah.
I read. I don't know if you did it. The Remain in Love, Chris France's book.
Yeah.
So it was great. I mean, the whole thing is about Tina. They're so cute, you know. But they're still going strong. I mean, now there's like kind of Talking Heads doing a little press tour and all that. But But before that, I feel like we're always on YouTube watching like shows of theirs, you know, them at like festivals and stuff. Like more recently, not like back in the day, and they're just still out there killing it, doing awesome stuff.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought Remaining Love because I was going to bring it up too. I mean, the tagline or like the sub line is Talking Heads, Tom Tom Club, Tina. And,
Yeah.
like I just love that. Like there's just, and it's not like, it's not in your face in the sense that like, okay, we get it. You love your wife, but it's very much like, oh man, you really love your wife. She really loves you. Like,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
do y'all know how they met?
No. I don't.
At the RISD? Yeah.
So they were in, I think it was a painting class, and Chris's roommate, she was painting something, and Chris's roommate came up and was like, I don't know if he was trying to like neg her or if he was just being an asshole, but he's like, oh, like you don't know what you're doing. And Chris took the opportunity, like, oh, please excuse my roommate. Hi, I'm Chris. Like, I don't know if that was the setup, if that was like planned, but she had a boyfriend at the time, and he was happy just like being in her presence to the point where like he's like, we can just, we were friends. And I think for the longest time too, she even thought like he was gay because like they never had anything romantic. And then I think the day her and her boyfriend broke up, she went to a bar, hung out with him, and then they got really close. And I think it was like, from there on, they were just together all the time.
That's awesome.
She actually never played bass before Talking Heads. She was, when they were dating, Chris was in a band with David. I can't remember what they were called. I think they're like the Artistics.
Yeah.
And they were like more of a cover band. And then they needed a bassist, and he convinced her. She kind of was just their driver, which Blondie, Debbie Harry was also kind of a driver for bands too. It's just so interesting. Like, all
That's
the
awesome.
parallels at the same time. But he convinced her to learn bass, and then the rest is history.
Yeah. No, I think it makes sense that she learned how to play bass to do the Talking Heads because it's like it fits perfectly. A lot of when you bring musicians together that have played in a lot of different bands, they've all, takes a lot of wiggling to make everybody's different sensibilities fit. She's the perfect thing for that music.
Yeah.
She grew in exactly the right direction. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And you can see like the growth in Tom Tom Club because I mean, Talking Heads like called for more primitive. Like the guitar is very basic. The bass is pretty basic. It's in many cases just like straight quarter notes, And I think that definitely plays to the advantage because if you hire a bass player, I mean, people who are musicians are going to want to kind of shine. And she was just, not that she was just fitting in, but like she was ready to do what was needed for the songs.
Yeah. She was serving. Yeah.
And they are like very creative bass lines and melodic, but it is, I mean, a lot of Tom Tom Club and Talking Heads is like very loop oriented. They're playing the same, 2-bar thing for 5 minutes or whatever. So, it's just cool how they all landed on that together. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of reminiscent of, I mean, people talk about like the White Stripes a lot, and people like to talk shit about Meg White's drumming, and Jack White is always the first person to defend, like, no, like White Stripes wouldn't be White Stripes without her.
Of course.
And this is why like we never started another band. If I started another band, it was completely different stuff because what she brings to the table is just, people like to call it just simplicity, but it's more about like not overcomplicating it. So it's the opposite of just being simple, just for the sake of being simple. It just fits that. And I feel like Talking Heads in general, I mean, everything is pretty, like you played on Rock Band or Guitar Hero. It's like the easy level,
Yeah.
And it's still, that doesn't matter. Like, it's not what that's about. It's about like it's not even about the lyrics either. It's just about the vibe that you're getting from it.
No, it's using that music. It's like all about what you do with it. It's like simple chords and simple but it's like it's almost like smarter, not harder. Don't overcomplicate it. Like just get into a groove. Like the whole
is greater than the sum of the individual parts.
Oh yeah,
yes, exactly.
For sure. And that's a great way to put it because I mean it's almost the equivalent of like a minimal orchestra. I mean the tubas are playing these straight things, but when you put it all together, it makes something really great.
All serving one thing. Yeah,
she was actually, she's the one who brought into French lyrics to Psycho Killer.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
My favorite sub-story of that is Husker Du got their name because they misunderstood the French part of Psycho Killer. They would yell out, Husker Du.
Oh my gosh. Wait, when did they think they were saying that? Husker Du. Husker Du.
Yeah,
like
Husker
that.
Du.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Husker Do's, Husker Don'ts.
If if I ever put out a solo album or whatever, I have Husker Du and Husker Don't as a song title.
Hell yeah.
So kind of taking us to a very different song. You guys picked Fernando by ABBA.
Hell
yeah.
ABBA's a band that 20 years ago I would have like convinced myself I didn't like just because toxic masculinity,
Right. Yeah.
And just the fact that like it's very cheesy, and that's the point. Like it's not supposed to be cool, but it is kind of cool. And I feel like in the last 10 years especially, I've realized like bands like ABBA and Carpenters, like their songs are so good.
Yeah.
And you see, I mean, they're Swedish, and you see a lot of the hit makers from the 90s, like Max Martin and I think I can't remember the other guy, but they're from Sweden, and they wrote very like popular songs like I Want It That Way. The lyrics don't make any sense. It's because English is their second language.
Yeah.
So you see that kind of, I don't want to say it originates with ABBA, but ABBA definitely kind of brings that forward. Why did you choose Fernando?
Yeah, why did you pick the song, Fernando? I can tell you why we love ABBA.
It's a bop.
Yeah. No, I think
we didn't. Oh, so I was just gonna say I didn't want to choose Dancing Queen, and we do a cover of Gimme Gimme, and we didn't want to choose that one either. We wanted to go something a little different that I just really like. I just think that song's beautiful, and yeah, ABBA has a lot of really beautiful songs.
No, it's really cool. I think what makes ABBA so cool is it's like this misinterpretation of American culture. You know what I mean? Like like you said, sometimes the lyrics are a little weird.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the lyrics,
Spanish.
I could be wrong on this. Yeah, they're in Spanish, which is like an American thing to do, is to write a song in like Spanglish about, and then I feel like a lot of the lyrics are written by the men for the women to sing. And so it really doesn't sit right, but it ends up being so beautiful. It's got that Swedish hit making gene,
Yeah. And that's a good point. It is kind of like taking something in Spanish, putting in Google Translate to English, and then putting it back to Spanish.
Exactly.
There's so many different like levels to that. So they were made up of two married couples. And the two guys were kind of writing partners, and then they met the girls separately, the women separately, in the same year, actually, I think 79.
They're like, you'll do.
Yeah.
And then they grabbed them and they're like, you're a good singer. Let's go.
They were writing stuff, and they're like, oh, we could use some female singers. Like, hey, we have girlfriends who sing. And they kind of just went from there. Fernando is interesting because it was written for, Benny and Bjorn are the guys. And then I can never say their names right. Agnetha and Anifrid.
Yeah, I think Agnetha, and then they just say, I know they say Frida.
Frida, yeah. So Fernando was written for Frida for her solo record in 75, and it's Swedish. So like they wrote, and the lyrics are different. It's not the same. I don't think it's the same story. And when they translated to English as a band for ABBA, it came out a year later, and that's when they kind of added like I don't want to say historical because I don't think it's really based in history. But this story about these two soldiers like reminiscing and like reliving this like battle, I guess.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Fernando. Yeah. I do. I just think it's so funny that they reference a lot of Spanish stuff in their music. Like they say like chiquita, and I'm like, you wouldn't say that. Yeah. You're like, they're like, I don't know. Really entertaining. I feel like they're robots.
No,
right?
It does feel a little bit like how AI music.
Yeah.
But not to say that it's soulless or whatever. It's just there's something a little off about it.
Yeah, they're so good that there's something a little off about it.
But I mean, that's kind of the same with the Talking Heads too. Like David Byrne has his own way of thinking about music,
in the best way.
Oh yeah.
So really, everyone talks about soul and feel, and the best way to make music is to just be weird.
Yeah. I think with ABBA, it's there's have y'all seen the movie just came out, Civil War?
I wanted to see that though.
So Alex Garland, I think, wrote and directed it, and he's British, I think. But it's a crazy movie, but it takes place in America, and he gets the geography like completely wrong. Like they start in New York, and they're like traveling to DC and like 1,000 miles from DC. I'm like, those are not 1,000 miles. I had to look it up. I'm like,
That's
did he
funny.
mean kilometers? No, even the kilometers, it's not. And I feel like America does that all the time with foreign countries whenever there's a movie or a song. And like, I know like even Shakespeare did it because like most of his plays take place in Italy and they're like, he's got the like landscape all wrong. So the fact that like what you're saying about Sweden kind of doing this kind of faux like American thing, it's really interesting to see how like the mind works in kind of trying to appeal to the most people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, and I think that's not unrelated to being like the kind of Swedish hit making thing that birthed Max Martin, and there's a sentiment of like, what do the people want?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're gonna give you whatever
Exactly.
the most satisfying thing is,
And it works
yeah.
for me.
No, I mean it works. It works for ABBA, and it works for Max Martin. You know, a lot of people, if you get too much into that mentality of trying to just please, you know, then you can feel that, and it's not right. But
No.
I don't know what the difference is. But with the Swedes, they got it going.
It's like a human algorithm.
Yeah,
Almost.
yeah.
I think I was listening to a podcast kind of talking about the story of Fernando, and they were talking about like, okay, he mentions the Rio Grande, or she mentions the Rio Grande, and like, okay, are they talking about like the Rio Grande in America, in Texas, or are they just talking about a giant river? Like,
Right.
you know, are they just translating?
Do they even know what they're
Yeah.
referencing, or is it just a big river?
Yeah, not this Rio Grande. That's,
Yeah.
it's in their own
Yeah.
universe. Yeah.
Not the river, but like the general Rio Grande. I love that just because I'm not, as much as I listen to music, I'm really bad unless the lyrics are very obvious or like so poignant where like I need to like look up to see what they're about. I'm really bad at like interpreting. And hearing this guy on this podcast was talking about like, because there was a woman singing and they mentioned Fernando, someone's name, like, oh, I thought this was a love song. And someone was like, well, it's about these two soldiers reminiscing. You don't ever hear the narrator, you don't hear their gender or their sex. So it could very well be a woman singing to a man, but there's like a platonic love there. So it is kind of a love song because they're reminiscing and reliving this time. And I thought that was really interesting, especially for a song by ABBA, like this, they're known for these kind of like, you know, like these love songs or songs that are seemingly love songs.
Yeah.
No,
Fancy love songs.
it is interesting. And like I said, I feel like the men are generally writing, Bjorn and Benny are writing these lyrics, and it's just another layer of that. Who is the narrator of this song? You know, what are they saying? I guess I never thought about that. I always kind of put a romantic edge to this song, but yeah, it doesn't say it. It's just a soldier. Now it's a man writing a song for a woman to sing from the point of view of a man, you know?
I think it goes even beyond just like the lyrics. I feel like that's kind of subconscious because of how she's singing. And it does feel like that there is kind of like a yearning, or there is like the way, there's like a desperation in both of the women's voices in the song.
Mm-hmm.
I think that with ABBA's interesting. I mean, like I said, there are two married couples. One of them was married for a decade. The other couple was married for just a few years. And one of them divorced after, like, right before they broke up, and right before the band broke up, and the other one kind of divorced kind of early in. So it's really interesting to like see that dynamic, and I think is a contrast to, you know, Tom Tom Club and Talking Heads with those two. It's interesting to see how it affected the songwriting, because for a band that has these songs that are so like saccharine, they're so sweet, you can hear a little bit of darkness towards the end, and I think they noticed that too, which is probably what led to the overall band breakup.
That's really cool, actually.
Yeah.
I like that. Because yeah, exactly like you said, like it's kind of funny how Tom Tom Club doesn't have these super sweet, you know, love songs, even though they're a couple making music. They're just writing about weird shit that inspires them. And it's like, and they're still together because they don't, you know, put so much emphasis on everything being so lovey-dovey.
Yeah.
They got that staying power.
No, I feel like anything that's made by human beings is gonna have this darkness to it and gonna have some turbulence, and like you said, ABBA being so saccharine.
Yeah, trying to stay that way.
Eventually,
is not,
something's got to happen.
it's
there.
not real. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too. I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. I feel is that like ABBA felt a little bit more personal, even though they're writing songs about these soldiers. You know, there is like a personal aspect to it where Tom Tom Club's a little bit more general. It's a little bit more. I don't want to call it abstract, but it does feel a little bit more abstract.
Yeah.
You know, in talking about like darker imagery, and that kind of takes us to the next song. It says "When I'm Small" by Phantogram.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're a couple. Because I always thought they were a couple too, and I was trying to find details. I think you could probably call them soulmates because they've known each other since like preschool and they've been best friends since junior high.
Oh.
But Sarah, the female part of a Phantogram, she dated Shaun White for like 6 years. I think they have a kid together. And I was trying to find stuff, and I think she's like made jokes about them, like her and Josh, the male part of Phantogram, like fooling around. I don't know if those are like jokes that have truth to it, but as far as I'm concerned, when I hear their songs, like, oh no, they sound like a unit. They sound like they have like, I mean, part of it's because they've been friends for so long.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we kind of assumed, you know, when we were writing this list, we're like, Phantogram, that's one. And I feel like, people talk about it, but I guess it's never
we've
really...
always thought that for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know where we heard that but that was like on our list of whatever we thought about couple bands. That's so funny.
I didn't realize because I've been doing research throughout the week, and then today I was doing some last minute research. So I'm like, oh, I've tried to get like stuff about each of these couples. Like, I don't have anything for Phantogram. I'm like, oh, like I can't really find
Maybe
anything.
that's why. Oh dang.
But I mean,
sorry, Phantogram.
Musically, they sound so in sync that they might as well be a married couple.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang.
No, they definitely serve as a yin and yang, and
they so this song, "When I'm Small," what made you decide to choose this song?
it's the
Another
one that
bop.
it's slapped the hardest. Yeah. No, I don't know. We had a bunch of Phantogram songs going, and they're awesome. We dig all their records, but I feel like this was just the one that we mutually liked the most.
Mm-hmm.
So.
It's it's off their debut album. It came out in 2010. Sarah from the band was talking about how when they were putting together the first album, I think they started the band around 2007. So this album came out 3 years after that. They hadn't really played a lot of live shows, if any, I think, and they were kind of putting it together in a studio. And you can kind of hear that on this first album in the sense that they're not crowd tested, and that's not a diss whatsoever. It's just it's made to be consumed that way.
Yeah.
And I kind of love that aspect of it because once you get to that point, you can never undo that to obviously start playing shows and then your sound's going to change and evolve and go from there. But to have that on their first album, I think that's actually very it's very fortunate that they were able to do it that way.
No, sure. It is like, it's an art piece, you know, and it kind of, it goes hard, you know, but you can definitely hear in their later work how it becomes more of for a live setting. And there's just a lot of like pretty textures that, man, I saw them it was the Free Press Festival. I don't think they even have that anymore. Yeah, in Houston, yeah. Several years ago, and it was amazing. I guess I didn't think about it, but thinking about that in this context, that first album, Eyelid Movies, is like, it's kind of art gallery music to some degree.
Mm-hmm. It's very ethereal. Like I feel like there's an aura to it.
Yeah.
I'd love to see them. I haven't seen them live, but I feel like that's got to be like an experience. Because
I've seen them.
Oh yeah,
it was really good.
I feel like it just translates to that. Like it's something not made for that avenue, and then they find a way to make it like to fit that avenue. So hearing like those kind of layers to it, it was probably got to be amazing. And
it is, and they bring a lot of energy to the stage. Yeah. I mean, that's interesting that we're talking about that. I didn't even think about that. And now that you said that out loud about like their later work, and I'm like, no, it does go harder and makes for, I could see him making for like a more exciting live show. Fun fact about that show that I went to, so it was at Sound on Sound. I don't know if that exists anymore either.
It was a one-off, I think.
Yeah, it was fun, right?
Yeah,
and then it was Sound on Sound. And it was, I mean, the lineup was just insane. There was like Shannon and the Clams over here on this side of music. And then it was also Death Grips and...
Yes played that year. That was, I think, one of their first shows back.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it Sound on Sound?
Oh, maybe it was Because they had one year, and then the second year it got canceled. Maybe AIS was supposed to play the second year.
I think so, because I would have remembered that. I'm a huge AIS fan. But what was it? Anyways, Phantogram played at the end of the night, and I was looking forward to them so much. And it was a beautiful show, but everyone was so exhausted after Death Grips because they have like a mosh pit going, like a huge, that everyone was like, "Ooh, hell yeah." You know what I mean? Like at the end. And I feel like Phantogram was kind of like, what the fuck? Like we should have gotten more energy from y'all. And I'm like, you're right. I'm sorry. I love you.
That feels like a good precursor to Death Grips. I feel like Death Grips just takes your soul out, so like you don't have anything left.
I did not have anything left. I didn't have my shoes. I lost them. Like it was a whole. It was a fun time.
I think so. The Phantograms, they kind of describe themselves. They have so many interesting like influences that kind of mix together. Which is like, I feel on paper, you see Phantogram following Death Grips, and you're like, what? And then you think about it, like, oh no, I can kind of see there's. Not necessarily similarities, but there's definitely like there's a connection in that sense. And
it's badass electronic kind of feel.
And they described themselves as like street beat psych pop. I mean, I think most people kind of put them in the same category as like DXX or like Crystal Castles, even more like I guess like more indie Crystal Castles, if that makes sense.
More vocals, straight, songwriting,
So, but like looking at their influence is just so interesting. I mean, you hear they mentioned Lucy in this song, and that's a reference to the Beatles, Lucy in Disguise. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. And beyond the Beatles, you hear a lot of David Bowie. But then they also talk about how much they love Jay Dilla. They collaborated with Big Boy. With Big Graham is what they put an album together.
I did not know that.
Oh man, it's just that's so awesome. It's one of those things like when you hear it, like, oh, that's interesting, and you think like, oh yeah, no, that I can see that. And apparently, Big Boy is like their big brother. Like they've become friends from that.
That's so cool.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, you know, when it comes to talking about their music, they are kind of all over the place, but in the best way possible. They do have this kind of dark imagery. This song is kind of dark. I mean, I was looking at like songmeanings.com, Genius, and I feel like there's a lot of different interpretations of it. But either way, one thing that's consistent is there's like a dark element to it.
Yeah, it's she's never coming back. You know what I mean? It's like there's a darkness, like a looming kind of death vibe.
yeah.
But it's like so beautiful.
And it's interesting because like I feel like this song in particular is still, as dark as it is still really seductive. It's very like Death Grips has that vibe going from him. It's very like Deftonesy. Like it's like this horny like dark band, and I feel like this song kind of fits within that mold too, on the spectrum of it at least.
It's true. I can see that.
With the song itself, it's interesting to mention that because I feel that like this song is used in commercials and TV shows all the time, and that first it's always like the first 30 seconds of it. That intro is very like you imagine. I imagine like a guy walking in with a suit, like selling cologne or something, and for that to be like the image that people have taken from the instrumental, and then these lyrics being so dark, it's just an interesting contrast.
Dang.
No, it is kind of an interesting thing about just the commerce of music in general is that like that drum break, you know, that it starts with, that was mixed at some point and, you know, edited to the perfect, you know, texture and aesthetic, and like it is this dark song, and then it has become, you know, the new, you know, Tesla Cybertruck or whatever. Yeah.
I feel like they are too cool for them to give the rights to Tesla.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe Cadillac or something.
Yeah, whichever.
It's funny because they were featured. Did you ever watch Skins?
Yeah.
Okay, did you watch the US version?
I think I saw a little bit of the US, and then I was told that the UK version was better, so I dove into that and I watched like all of it.
UK version is definitely better. US felt very, I don't know what it was, like, because the storyline's very similar, but it felt like a caricature. It felt like almost a parody. But they were on the first episode of the Skins US version, and a lot of people were like upset about it because I guess they're coming from this like indie rock world, and this is at the point where like sellout was still like it's still like a four-letter word in that era. Did y'all ever listen to Bandsplain with Yassi Salek?
Yeah, hell
He just got me into it. I just started doing it.
Yeah.
So she always talks about how like sellout isn't a thing anymore.
Yeah.
Like, and because of the Shins, because of Garden State, and then you got like of Montreal and Outback Steakhouse. But at this time, this is kind of that turning point. So I think people were upset, one, because they were on MTV, and two, because the Skins US version was so bad. Yeah. But they got I don't want to say they got a lot of pushback, but there was some pushback to where they responded on Facebook.
Really?
Yeah.
What did they say?
They were just talking about like, I think they were taking it from like the sense that they thought they were being called sellouts for making money. And I don't think that was necessarily what people were upset about so much as what they were doing it for, which is still stupid, but like.
So they were just on the episode?
This song was on the episode.
Oh, the song was,
Yeah.
Well, come on. Yeah, people just be mad.
Yeah.
Don't get mad at me for trying to make money. I would sell out today. I will sell out right now. Just kidding.
That's the thing. I feel
Arby's.
Oh yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I think everybody has. I mean, it's funny because I talked to my wife about certain things about like how much money would it take for you to like, not to extend. Obviously, there's a moral thing, and I feel like no one has a price for that. But there are some things that are kind of borderline. Like I would never want like a song in a Starbucks commercial, but if they came with like the good price. Yeah. I'm not super expensive.
Right. Yeah. Dude, no, I totally feel that. That season of the US Skins though also introduced me to sleigh bells.
Oh, really?
Well. Yeah, I had never heard sleigh bells before until then. So there was some good stuff.
I love sleigh bells because I was really into Poison the Well, and then the guitarist of Poison the Well started it with he met her. He was a waiter, I think, and one of his regulars. He was telling her like, "Oh, I'm starting a band," and it's like, "Oh, my daughter sings," and that's how they started.
Nice.
And
you have all the facts. I love it.
Are they a couple? Should we have picked sleigh bells?
Should we have picked sleigh bells?
They're not a couple.
Dang.
Okay.
Another. Seems like they should be a couple.
We're making assumptions.
I mean, they're another band. I feel like that's very like relatable to this because they do sound like they could be like they have this like. He kind of stands in the background. They have a very like Debbie Harry Chris Stein kind of relationship without the like relationship. But they're interesting just because I remember I was obsessed with them. I heard the demos for Treats before Treats came out. Nice. I remember going to all my friends like, this band is going to be the biggest band ever. They're going to be, I don't remember who I compared them to, but and they got big, but they didn't get to like that level.
No, but it's almost like, see, maybe I do have that sellout mentality because I'm like, it's almost cooler that they didn't get that. You know what I mean? They didn't get to a certain level, but like they're pretty fucking big though.
Oh yeah, they played like they've opened arenas for other bands.
If we got to open for Sleigh Bells, I'd be so psyched. You know what I mean? It'd be like, hell yeah. Sleigh Bells.
They're so elusive to me because anytime I've had an opportunity to like go see them, something's happened. Like I've gotten sick. Or like they sold out before, like I got paid the day after they sold out. So they're a band I still would love to see, and yeah, they're another band.
They rip, yeah.
Oh yeah, I bet
the energy.
I'm like
and the music.
Yeah, and they're another band that's like in a lot of soundtracks, and I feel like every time I've seen them in a movie or show, their songs like it fits perfectly. It's like just the perfect vibe. So on a very different vibe, the next song I picked was "Need Your Love" by Tennis.
So good.
This is a band. I was kind of talking to you guys about before we started recording that I've always been aware of Tennis. I have friends who love Tennis, and I've heard their songs. I'm like, oh, this is cool. And then listening to this song with these podcasts, I make a playlist of the songs and I listen to them over and over again to kind of get the feel, and it's made me appreciate the songs even more. And hearing this first song, like, oh, this is really good. It's really catchy. It's kind of nostalgic in terms. It sounds more vintage than anything. But listening to it over and over again, the hook. You know, people like
the tempo change.
Yeah.
Right? It's so like, I
don't know if
impactful.
I couldn't find anything about the construction of the song, but it almost felt like they had the chorus first and they're like trying to put something for it. And then they had this other song. Like, let's just put these two together.
I feel like we've done that.
Yeah. No, that's like the Lennon McCartney. Like, what was it, A Day in the Life or some of those, or I've got this and you've got this. Become a way to make a song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was super validating. Just watching them like fuck around for like 3 hours. Oh, they do it too.
Yeah.
Like this isn't like genius doesn't come in like 5 minutes the way it does in the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, I know, right? They're just like, give me a beat. That's it. You know, like.
And then George Harrison gets pissed off and goes home. So like, oh man, this is so relatable.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so they're a married couple. And this song
crushed it.
Yeah.
So good. Okay.
They when they made this song, a lot of people compare it to, especially the chorus, to the Carole King song "It's Too Late," and ever since I saw it, I can't unhear it.
Oh dang!
Yeah,
well now,
totally.
Cause it's too late.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that just that whole process of them writing songs together, it's been so interesting looking at all these bands, and as people who are in a relationship and how they write songs is still very different, and like sometimes. One of them has like a specific specialty and then they bring that, or sometimes they collaborate together on all the parts. And I felt like you can hear the influence in this song so much that I don't want to say, because it doesn't sound like a ripoff whatsoever, but you can hear the inspiration of it. And I feel like they heard that song and they're like, oh, like we should write a song like this.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
No, I'm very pro stealing music in general. You know what I mean? Like I think that there's 12 notes.
Out. Just kidding.
So yeah, no, I never thought about that. The melody is kind of
need your love and I need the way it flows and the way it
great. Sing that melody.
No, because sometimes what he's saying, he doesn't really mean stealing music, guys. No, but sometimes we'll hear a song and we're like, I love the feel of this song. We should write something kind of like this, just to have that. I don't want to say the word vibe because vibe is so incredibly overused nowadays.
I'm so guilty of
that. But it's a vibe. Like
Yeah.
I can't find a better word sometimes, but yeah, we're like, we should steal this vibe,
Yeah. I think
we're just inspired by it really.
For sure. And I feel like there are things that are like, obviously like homages, and I think that like,
my man.
Y'all have that song where y'all like reference Tom Petty, and like that's obvious. Like you're not trying to like say y'all created this like phrase. Like it's very obvious. And I feel like with a lot of like call out culture, people want to like call out people for every single thing in terms of like stealing music. But it's not. It's homage. It's influence.
Especially if you're straight up about it, like, hey, this sounds like this, or we were inspired by this. So it's like you can't really.
For sure. I need a sign in like on the video because it's gonna say like I've done this many episodes without talking about Olivia Rodrigo because I'm about to talk about Olivia Rodrigo again. And it's gonna be 0 every fucking
You're
time.
like Yassi Salik with Dave Matthews Band.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it.
But Olivia Rodrigo is very obvious. Like she has that song "Good for You," and it's clearly inspired by Paramore.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you hear like "Brutal," and that's Elastica. Like you hear so much Elastica. You hear Veruca Salt. And it's very upfront. Like it's just very like it's unabashedly that, but it's also still new. It's still different. I love like hearing about how how people write things, especially as long as y'all have been together as collaborating. Is it pretty consistent with how y'all write songs, or does it change song to song?
It changes.
Yeah, no, every song is different. There, at some point, we got to make up some words. At some point, we got to have a musical idea. What order?
It usually comes with a seed from one of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have an idea that's kind of like this. I want to write a song like this, or sometimes it's a phrase. I'm like, I like this as a hook. This is catchy. This is cool. And then sometimes it's a guitar line, a bass line. And I write a lot like on my ukulele, to say it correctly, and just write like a little ditty, a little melody, and then I'm like, can you make this good? And then and then he's like, I can make this good. No,
or the inverse, like I'll make up a little track or a loop or something and be like, what is this?
Hi, what do you think about this? What is this? And then we do it. So it's honestly like it's different every single. We're just inspired by a lot of different things, and so the way that we write it is like a lot of different ways.
I don't think that there's like one right way to collaborate as a band, but I love hearing that way because I feel like everyone gets their say, and then like everyone gets their song, and you have to be truly like, you truly have to know each other to be able to do that kind of stuff. And when you do achieve that, and it is hard, and communication in general is hard, but when you do achieve that, you can see it in the results. I feel like you guys are blowing up, and you guys like all like I've never heard a song of yours that I didn't like.
Oh, I love that.
Thanks.
It's just I feel like y'all capture all these energies. I'm gonna say energies instead of vibes.
Hey, there you go.
Sound very like worldly. But yeah, y'all capture this energy, and it's not super like stuck in that bubble. It captures so many different things to where it can appeal to multiple people, and at the same time, it's universal. You know, it's universal, but also like specific because people can get what they want out of a song in that, but then everyone can get a different want out of those songs.
I love that. Thank you for
Yeah.
saying that.
No, it's very nice. Yeah. No, we definitely don't have. People have told us the opposite. People have told us that we need to figure out what we're doing because every song is just a whole ass new thing. But I don't want to. You know, that's like that's why like we made this list, and this is an eclectic list. We've got a lot of eclectic lists, and that's the eclecticism is
Our set list is an eclectic list.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think for a while, like we were, like he said, like we've thought that we need to find the sound and stick to like one sound. And I think that throughout, the few years that we've been doing music, we're like, no, the thing is there's not one sound. That's the thing. That's the sound, different energies.
Yeah. And we've had the lineup that we have right now that we've had for the last year with
Johnny Casillas and Christian Barbosa.
With Johnny Casillas and Christian Barbosa. No, it's they bring their own influences too, and it's like that's all we need is more influences on the table, but also they have their sensibility and their style of musicianship, and so I feel like there's more cohesion. The songs start to sound more like each other, even if it's a punk song and then a reggae song and then a disco song and then a whatever kind of song,
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it. I feel like you see a lot of bands with longevity and they have different phases. I mean, the Beatles had multiple phases. They were a boy band, and then they were, a garage rock band, and then they were a hippie band, a psychedelic band.
Is he asleep?
He's dozing off.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I just panicked. I thought I deleted all my notes. I just opened up a new one.
You're like, all right.
I don't know what else to say right now. No, so, with tennis, they've been married for about a decade. They met in college also, just like Tom Tom Club. And they met in a philosophy class. And then after they graduated, they went on this like 8-month sailing expedition.
That is actually one fact that I do know about tennis is I read up on them, and it's so fascinating. Yeah, they went on a boat. And then they wrote a lot of songs about boats afterwards and the sea.
Their first album was basically like almost a concept album about that.
Yeah. So cool.
When y'all write songs, obviously you're pulling from your own personal, experiences. Is there ever a situation where you're like, we need to write a song about that? I had this experience, we need to write about it. Or is it something that just kind of comes to you?
I'd say both.
For me, less so. I seldom have like, this is how I've been feeling. This is something that happened and I need to get this out. I've never related to like use the pain that you have or whatever to express it. I do think that there's something, inside that is coming out. There's maybe something you're channeling, but it never seems that direct. It's like, oh, the breakup happened, the death happened, and then my pain manifested in this song. It's never been linear like that for me. I don't know where the songs come from. It's, it's an abstract thing. I tend to think of it like Willy Wonka, where they particleize the kid and it goes on the other side of the room, and it's just pulling abstract things, and eventually it will become one thing. You know what I mean?
It's putting it in like a sausage maker.
Yeah,
and it just comes out as one
it's
thing.
Very
one link.
Sausage like. Yeah.
Well, I'm not like that.
Yeah. No. Exactly.
I think that's a good way to like. I think that's one of the many reasons why you guys work as a band. Like, I feel like it reminds me a little bit of like Anthony Kiedis and John Frusciante. Like,
hell yeah,
Kiedis had this song about Under the Bridge, and Frusciante's like, "Give me a minute," and he writes one of probably I think their best song.
Yeah. No, because pretty much I'm not going to say the opposite because obviously like we're not so opposite. We have like so much in common about, but I guess, yeah, maybe the songwriting process is very different. Like for me, I pull inspiration from very personal things, from my feelings and from, and it is like, I'll want to write a song because I think something's cool, as well. But a lot of the times, like the songs that I write are usually pretty personal. And there's things that I have to say, things that are on my mind, things that are, you know what I mean? I have to like get off my chest. And he's like, great, let's do it. You know what I mean? He's like, cool, sounds good. I like the way this sounds. And
no, but exactly kind of like the Chili Peppers example that you just said. If there's something honest and there's something real there, then I think that no matter how it was kind of made, I think that we'll respect that and like put it in the petri dish and let's nurture it.
And I like and admire the way Bobby is about writing music as well, because I feel like I have to find something. You know what I mean? Like I have to search for that inspiration. And he's like, no, this song is about, we recently wrote a song, he wrote a song about the Supernova Smoke Shop calendar.
Yeah. No,
and it's a whole song. It's this amazing song. And he's like, you can change the lyrics if you want. And I'm like, no, we're not changing these lyrics. They're amazing. And they're very like, but they're not simple. They're about everyday things. Bobby's got kind of a David Byrne kind of a thing because he wants to write about everyday things. But to me, it sounds very artistic and deep. You know what I mean? Bringing those mundane things, giving them life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think that like 50% of like having good collaborations is being game. It's like the yes and type of approach.
Yeah.
With going with tennis, this kind of brings me to the point with tennis that they started a band because they wanted something to share as a couple. And I don't think that it was like they were like, we need to start a band. Or like they tried painting together and they said they weren't very good at painting. They're like, hey, we both play instruments. Why don't we start a band?
That's so cool.
I love that for them, but I just love that that's produced the music that it has because you can hear that. And even at this song is a very like yearning song. It's also like I don't want to call it a toxic love song, but almost like in that sense.
It is. I think when you first hear it, you think it's a straight up love song, and then you listen to the lyrics and it's like, oh, it's kind of a fuck you song. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I need your love like I need a bolt of lightning from this guy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need this.
Yeah. And I love that even within the like subject of this song, you can still hear like I hear this song and I see them like looking at each other while they're playing in my head.
Yeah. I love that.
When it comes to, I don't know you guys' history in terms of like, were y'all dating before y'all started the band or were you like, okay.
Yeah.
We dated for like 6 months before we started. Like he was in like 50 bands or maybe like 4. But and I would come see him do a thing, and I had been writing music and singing and stuff for a while, doing little covers, little ukulele covers and stuff. And but I was always way nervous about asking him to do something with me because I didn't want him to think that like that's why we're dating or like whatever's like I just didn't want anything to be assumed in our relationship. And so it kind of took us a while. And also I was very intimidated to try to work with him because like he's so good and so talented and yeah. And then I kept seeing shows and we would go together and like there was like a yearning inside of me. I was like, I want to perform so bad, like I would see people and I'm like, that should be me, like I had like this like pain. And we just talked about it one night and he was like, yeah, no, that's exactly what we should do. He just got a little light bulb and probably wrote stuff all night, but he's like, we should absolutely start a band together. Yes. Yeah. And I'm like, okay.
I was playing in Thea at the time that we started dating, and we were doing a run with Thea.
I went on tour with them.
And she came on tour for like a week, and obviously not in the band, just but taking it all in, and and then it was like the night we got back from that run, she's like, I want to have a band. I'm like, let's have a band.
Like I want it so bad, and it's like I've never been a performer. I've done performances here and there, but I just kind of didn't know if I could really do it, like honestly. And so he kind of took a chance with me. I also don't want to sound like I wasn't grateful to just be on tour and like do the thing and be the merch girl, because I was, and it was super fun. But at the same time, I was like, oh fuck, I want to do this shit so bad. I want it. Anyways.
I feel like
now we're doing
especially being around them too, and they have like, you know, this history and Girl in a Coma. And
Yeah,
like, you know,
yeah.
I feel like that was probably fun too. Like,
Yeah, and Letty, the front girl of Fea, that's my fucking homegirl, you know, and she's so badass and a great singer and brings an awesome energy. And I was always like the most hype one there, you know, like in the front row. Like if I'm a front person now and I love doing that, but like before that, like I'm like the hypest person at every show, like just having a blast.
That's dope. I feel like you were like the perfect collaborator, because not just in this conversation, but even talking to Wayne. Like Wayne's like, I've got this idea, and you're like, hold my beer, you know, like let me run this way. So I love hearing that, and how it kind of translates to these different, very different bands. Obviously, like Wayne's very different than what you guys, but there's still like the core of it is the spirit of it is still the same.
Yeah. No, I like the challenge, you know, if there's something there that's inspired me, and I feel like there's a wide range of things that inspire me, then we'll do that. And I think that's kind of what Honey Bunny is, you know, the thing that will make me do, you know, Wayne or Fea or the different country acts that I've done, or, you know, my old band Islands and Tigers, that are all these different things. Like Honey Bunny's kind of all of them, or any of them are on the table at least, you know.
A Wayne song is on the table for us. A Wayne song is on the table for us.
Yeah. Which one?
I don't know.
All right.
Yeah, may I suggest? I want to hear like a pop punky minute with Mark.
Everybody wants a minute with Mark.
Yeah, we got it.
We'll do. You hear that, Wayne? We'll do a minute with Mark. I've always wanted to cover it. I like to sing it. I know a lot of the lyrics.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a minute with Mark.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
I have a funny story about that though, and learning like how he works, and just him as like a producer, and like, you know, he helped create all of Wayne's songs. And I remember like being in bed, like it was like early on in our relationship, and hearing a voice memo from Wayne, and it's just and Bobby just goes, I can work with that. Yeah, I can do that. And I was like, oh, okay. Little story about Wayne.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love hearing it. I just love seeing it from like the ground floor in terms of like where the creativity comes from. So the last song y'all picked was Atomic by Blondie. And this is a song like I knew, I just wasn't as familiar with. My favorite Blondie song is Dreaming, and
That's a good song.
Atomic is interesting because it starts off with this kind of like Western motif.
Yeah.
It's very like horse galloping.
Yeah.
What was it about this song that you wanted to put on the list?
That.
It slaps. Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, we love Blondie, and that they're a big influence of ours in what we do. And no, I love the kind of spaghetti western guitar thing. And
But then it's like kind of disco, and then it's like it's got different energies within the same song, and that's why we're like, no, this is the one we should pick for. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, because it's definitely, like I said, it's a song that I wasn't super familiar with, and like listening to it, I listened to the band playing on Blondie as preparation for this, all 3.5 hours of it.
Nice.
And it was fun to kind of go through, like she didn't do this with all their episodes, but she kind of went track by track on each record, and just seeing the like evolution of what they would become. I mean, they're another band. I feel like I always think back to like, looking back before I was listening to the podcast, I'm like, oh, they had their like Call Me era, and then they had their Heart of Glass era. Like, no, this is all at the same time. Like, they were pulling different, and they were big into like Donna Summer. They were big into disco, and then they were big into hip hop. I mean, Rapture is like the elephant in the room, because they even had, who was it? There was, when they were on SNL, did they have Fab Freddy? They had a rap group on. Like, they brought a rap group on to perform like their own like set. Like, it was part of the show. So I feel like they have all these influences and all these like inspirations, and at the same time, I wouldn't think that they were the type of people who like, oh, like we brought this up, but they totally did. Like they totally like put a lot of stuff into the mainstream.
Like Aerosmith, right?
Yeah.
Doing
Run DMC.
the hip hop collaboration. Not my favorite song, but I love what it did.
Yeah. No, this is prior to that.
Yeah.
This is.
I'm just thinking about like rock and hip hop, and I mean, well, not to mention like the '90s and new metal, but but yeah, and that's why Blondie's such an influential band to us. Is all the things that you said about them being different fans of different styles of music and whatnot, and just saying, yeah, we're just gonna do that now. I think we're gonna do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
Especially
that.
at the time where like
Fearlessness.
like punk music and disco music were so antithetical,
At odds.
you know,
Yeah.
and they're like, we're both of those things.
Yeah.
you
Which
know?
is like the most punk rock thing.
Yeah.
for
Right.
them to do.
Exactly. Punk
Exactly.
rock soul.
It's interesting just to hear about like how they came up because I mean I didn't notice until the band's playing episode, but Debbie Harry was like 31 when they started ish. I think by the time they ended, she was like 37 or so. So it was a little bit later. She had led a whole life. She was kind of a junkie. She worked at the Playboy Club. She was like the way they describe her as like working as a waitress in New York City. I just hear her going like, "Bleh," you know, like, hey boys,
Yeah.
and then you see her on stage or you see her in like promos and she's just like so glamorous and it's like she's led so many different lives. She was in the band Stilettos and that's how her and Chris met. Chris Stein, who plays guitar for Blondie. He was dating this other woman. I can't remember her name. And they went to the Stiletto show. And Debbie Harry said that while she was performing, there was like this aura around Chris. And it was like a movie. And that like, it was almost like she was playing specifically for him. And then I think a couple years later is when they started dating. And then that's what led to them starting Blondie.
That's so cool. I also didn't know that story.
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely hadn't done our research on the couple aspect
Oh,
of these
no. I
bands.
mean,
yeah.
I didn't really. This is more about like with the guests, especially. Like
Mm.
I want you guys to talk about like how you relate to that. To me, that's more interesting. I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing the nerd stuff, so like I'm trying to fill in the gaps in terms of like what this inspires in me, so that way I can kind of correlate with what inspires you.
Yeah.
In the songs. But yeah, I think Blondie is super interesting. Have y'all listened to the Blondie episode of Bands Playing?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's listened to
I
every
think I've
single
probably done all of them.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah?
I'm newer to them.
I've got a few I need to catch up on, but Yasi talks a lot about how they had this like she talks about like divine feminine and how like there's the opposite of pretty privilege when it comes to Debbie Harry, and she was so beautiful and people kind of hated her for that. Like it's kind of like that John Hamm episode of 30 Rock where he's just so good looking.
Yeah.
Oh, the opposite actually.
Yeah.
I
I could see that.
they weren't typically, I mean, they were a part of the CBGB scene, but they don't get as much credit, I feel, for like what Yasi was saying, like for being a part of that, because there's this kind of divide between like bands like them and then like Patti Smith and Television. And it's an interesting divide because when I look at them, that's all universal to that scene. But to go back then, obviously, as it's happening, it's probably very different. You probably have you pick your sides, which feels really dumb to say, like in hindsight.
No, I could see that being a thing though. In the time, they have different sounds, and one's more, I don't know, straightforward like rock, and then another one's a little more pop, a little more.
No, yeah.
accessible.
If you think about it, like, because in like that CBGB world, in the Chris France book, he talks about the Talking Heads go on tour with the Ramones, and they're like polar opposite kinds of people, and in history, in hindsight, it's like, well, that's the CBGB scene, the CBGB era, and it's like when you were in that, it seems like people are polar opposites and enemies, and the most removed thing, and like in the local scene that exists too, where it's like bands hate each other that are playing adjacent to each other all the time. But if that was put into some kind of historical context, it would be they played in the same place at the same time and they're the same scene, And
I think that's something that's kind of, I feel like another thing Yasi talks about a lot is the monoculture. There's a lack of monoculture now And which is there's great aspects of having your own bubble. Like you can meet people more. There's the internet is open up to where you can meet people across the country who have the same interest in you. The only problem with that is that it's hard to break out of that bubble. And one thing that was interesting, and the guy from Washed Up Emo brings this up a lot, is that even going back to like the early 2000s, you had these set lists of bands that didn't sound anything alike. You could see like in Dashboard Confessional opening up for Madball. It's just like these polar opposite types of bands, but they're still part of the similar scenes to where people still went. And some nights Chris Crabbe would get booed off the stage. Sometimes people would actually enjoy it and go punch each other to Madball. And you don't really see that as much anymore. I feel like there's a lot more things are more fitted to each individual like perspective.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's always the best thing. I mean, I get it, I guess, but I like it whenever there's different kind of genres of music all playing under one roof. Like, because I mean, personally, I don't have to, if I'm going for a punk show, it doesn't have to all be punk, Like I like it when there's different.
Or like, what is punk? What I mean? Like,
punk is a state of mind, is what I think and what I feel. But yeah, what you're talking about, we watched that documentary about like New York in like 2001 or something, and it was like
Meet Me in the Bathroom.
Meet Me in the Bathroom, and it was like Yeahs, The Strokes, Moldy Peaches.
Oh yeah.
Which they were kind of ones that stood out. They were like acoustic and like had like, I don't know, these bizarre songs. Interpol, though, all different sounds, all different, but playing shows together. Like you hear that lineup and you're like, that's like my high school dream.
Yeah.
There's this great story from the book. Have y'all read the book, Meet Me in the Bathroom?
Yeah, I did some of it.
It's way more elaborate than because I was like, when I heard it was going to be I thought it was going to be a docu-series. I'm like, I'm down, but it's like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I still haven't seen it yet, but I still want to. But in the book, the guy from Moldy Peaches, I can't remember his name. I know Kimya's name. I can't remember his name. He's like, he was talking about how he was outside and he'd dress up like Peter Pan sometimes. And these like jock guys were like giving him shit, and then the Strokes came out and like kicked this like jock's ass. He was like, "Yeah, like I'm up there dancing like Peter Pan. Like I'm not like, why do you want to mess with me?" And it was just so interesting that they were playing with the Strokes.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't. But then again, like at that time, people were burning CDs, and music like that would be on the same mixtape. It was a mixtape, Yeah, like that's what was hot. I definitely did like Yeahs and the Strokes at the same time. Like, I don't know. And I wouldn't think of those as really the same type of music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the essence of what I want to do with this podcast. I feel like, and like you guys nailed the assignment because every song in here is very different, but there's like obviously like a through line of what this playlist, the theme of it, but at the same time, they're so very different and it's still the same type of energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Songs that we dig. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I feel like when it comes to talking about Blondie, there's just so many different routes of like the conversation where it can go. I mean, and in terms of just inspiration, I feel like now they get their flowers more for the punk scene. One thing that Yassi Zalek mentioned is that there's the CBGB version of Meet Me in the Bathroom is called Please Don't Kill Me or Please Kill Me. And it's about, the same thing, just as an oral history. And that Blondie's mentioned like 7 lines in that whole book. And the CBGB movie kind of takes from that book a lot.
There was a movie?
Yeah. What's his face? Alan Rickman played Hilly.
Yeah, we got to do that.
When did that come out?
2011 or 2013.
Oh, okay.
It was a while ago.
I don't remember hearing about it.
But it's funny to see like the different actors who like Malin Ackerman played Blondie.
I could see that.
And then Joe David Moore from Grandma's Boy played Joey Ramone.
Okay.
It's fun to see. It made me want to see like an MCU of CBGB, like have a movie about each band, or even just like an episode of TV about each band and like how they interact with each other. I feel like that's still on the table. I still want to see. I want to see Adam Driver play Joey Ramone really bad.
Dude.
Yeah. They were talking about Pete Davidson playing Joey Ramone, right? And then something happened. I don't know. Was it?
I mean, I guess I could only see that because he's like a lanky dude.
And the Long Island of it all. Like,
But Adam Driver's like a great actor. He could do it. I
True.
trust him. That'd be awesome.
One other thing I thought was fun in the research is the hair dye Manic Panic.
Mm-hmm.
The women that started as backup singers for Blondie.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they actually opened up the punk boutique Manic Panic like shortly after they left Blondie.
Dang.
So another thing that like Blondie has like an influence on that goes beyond just the music. Yeah. So kind of concluding the playlist here. What when it comes to coming up with these songs, we've talked a lot about like what went into it, and obviously like they all slap, they all are bops. I think that there are obviously like it's hard to narrow it down to 5, and this is one thing that was kind of the challenge of the podcast itself. What are some other bands that you would have wanted to include if you had more like spots?
Yeah, I probably have our initial big list.
Yeah.
But I remember we were talking
now
about...
that we can't use Phantogram. Whoops.
Like, No Doubt was obviously a contender. Fleetwood Mac. Slater Kinney was one we were thinking about.
Oh, yeah. We were thinking about Slater Kinney.
Was it Carrie and...
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. At least at one point, there were a couple.
Yeah. White Stripes. Arcade Fire.
Oh, yeah.
Was that Paul and Linda McCartney? Does that count?
I love Wings.
Yeah.
Wings, I like. I don't want to say Paul is like my least favorite Beatle, because like I feel like Ringo's kind of just neutral. George is my favorite, but
okay.
I love Wings almost more than like all Beatles songs.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Live and Let Die and Band on the Run especially.
Band on the Run.
It's just, but yeah, they have a very similar vibe in terms of, I'm going to say vibe a million times.
That's fine. I get it.
But they have a very similar like kind of aura as like, as Tennis, I feel like, and I feel there has to be some influence on Tennis. Like, I feel like I said, I hear them singing to each other, even if they're not actually singing. And I got that from every song by Wings.
Yeah. No, with Wings and just with all of McCartney's like 70s stuff. Like I saw a YouTube essay or whatever about how like Ram is the first indie album, which, would by genealogy give way to Tennis,
Yeah.
I mean, not that it necessarily sounds like Tennis, but I mean, I could say like 70s McCartney and like Tennis a few albums in. It's not too far apart.
Yeah. That easy listening, like kind of yacht rock. Borderline yacht rock vibe.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on.
Yeah.
This was a lot of fun.
This was a lot of fun.
Do y'all have anything that you want to plug right now?
I don't know. Get on our social medias. We got a bunch of shows. We're playing shows, so come check us out. Especially if you're in Texas, then we're probably playing close to you. If you're outside of Texas, we'll maybe be there, but definitely in Texas.
Yeah. No, we're playing a bunch of different places in Texas. We're about to go back to McAllen, the Flying Walrus. That's a really sick place to play with a lot of young people that are eager to hear original music, which is like a rare thing. It really, I mean, at least like, no offense to where we live, but at least like where we are, like it's a rare thing. And then we're going Denton, College Station.
Yeah, we're doing Houston. Yeah. And then some other dates haven't been announced yet.
Some other places, some other dates. Yeah. Just follow us. Just do that.
Yeah.
We'll be announcing things.
You guys are Honey Bunny SATX on Instagram, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We'll include some links and stuff in the
Also,
notes.
we're not a couple. Nah, just kidding. Can you imagine?
But thank y'all so much.
Yeah,
thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
This is fun. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for listening to Mixtape Stories.